You're standing in line at a coffee shop, tired, running late, and the barista gets your order wrong for the second time. You snap. Not loudly, just a short, sharp comment, the kind of thing you'd normally forget you even said by the time you reach your car. You watch her face fall for half a second before she catches herself and apologizes. Too fast, too small. The way people do when they've decided the safest move is to disappear a little. You get your coffee. You leave. And on the drive home, out of nowhere, a wave of humiliation hits you so hard you have to grip the steering wheel. Not your humiliation, you didn't do anything embarrassing. But it sits in your chest exactly like it's yours. Hot, specific, familiar in a way that makes no sense until you realize it feels exactly like the expression on her face right before she looked away. You tell yourself it's nothing. Guilt, maybe. A guilty conscience manufacturing a feeling to punish you for being short with a stranger. You felt guilt before. This isn't quite that. Guilt is about you. This feeling has nothing to do with you at all. It's about her. Borrowed wholesale, dropped directly into your chest like it was never yours to begin with. It fades within an hour. You forget about it by dinner. 3 days later, you're helping your neighbor carry groceries up to her apartment. Nothing dramatic, just a small kindness on a random afternoon. And that night, you fall asleep feeling unexpectedly light. A warm, settled kind of calm you can't attach to anything happening in your own life. You didn't have a particularly good day. Nothing good happened to you. But you go to bed feeling like something good happened to someone, and somehow that someone is also you. You start paying attention now, the way you'd pay attention to anything you're not ready to believe. You keep a mental log. Every time you cause even a small ripple in someone else's mood, a compliment, an insult, patience, impatience, something arrives afterward that doesn't belong to your own day. Always delayed, never immediate. Sometimes hours later, sometimes the next morning, but always unmistakably not yours in a way you can't quite explain to anyone else. Because how do you explain a feeling that's the wrong shape for your own life? You read about mirror neurons, a real documented category of brain cells that fire both when you perform an action and when you simply watch someone else perform it. The biological basis for empathy, for the reason yawns are contagious and why watching someone else get hurt makes you wince. For a moment, that feels like an answer. Maybe you're just unusually sensitive. Maybe your brain has always done this, quietly, and you're only noticing it now. Except mirror neurons explain resonance. They don't explain a stranger's humiliation showing up in your own chest 3 hours after the fact, sharp and unmistakable. Long after she's out of sight, and you've stopped thinking about her entirely. So you test it, deliberately this time, the way you'd test anything you actually need to understand. You go out of your way to be kind to someone, really kind, not performative, the kind of attention that costs you something. You let a frazzled parent go ahead of you in line and mean it. You listen, actually listen to a coworker who's clearly having a hard week. That night, you feel something you don't have accurate language for. Not happiness exactly, something closer to being seen, being understood. The specific relief of someone finally taking your side. Except nobody took your side today. Nobody did anything for you. You just handed two strangers a version of that feeling, and hours later, it found its way back.
At first, the temptation here is obvious, and you give in to it completely. If kindness comes back as warmth, then kindness becomes a kind of currency, and you start spending your days chasing the return instead of the act itself. You compliment people you don't particularly care about. You perform patience you don't actually feel, because you've learned the reward shows up regardless of whether you meant it. Here's what you don't expect. The returned feeling starts arriving thinner, less full, as if some part of the exchange knows the difference between kindness given and kindness performed, and only pays out for the real thing. You course correct, mostly because the fake version stops working and the real version doesn't. But somewhere in that adjustment, you start noticing the other side of the ledger too. The side you've been avoiding, the side that isn't compliments and small courtesies. You start thinking about the people you've actually hurt, not strangers in coffee shops, people who mattered, people you had years with, not seconds. You think about your ex-best friend, the one you stopped speaking to after a fight so ugly neither of you ever tried to repair it. The one where you said the thing you knew would land hardest and watched it land exactly that hard, on purpose. Because in that moment, you wanted them to feel as small as you felt. You haven't thought about that night in years. You've built an entire comfortable narrative around it. They were difficult, you were justified, it was mutual, everyone moves on. The story has worked for a long time. Then, one ordinary Tuesday evening, doing nothing in particular, here's the part that changes everything. Once it passes, you don't feel relieved. You feel something closer to responsible, aware in a way you weren't before, that every one of your worst moments has a second half you never had to witness. A person somewhere carrying the full weight of something you delivered and then walked away from, clean, unbothered, free to build a story where you were the reasonable one. Psychologists have studied something adjacent to this, without any mysterious delayed feedback loop involved at all. It's called emotional contagion, the well-documented tendency for feelings to transfer between people through tone, expression, and behavior, often without either person consciously registering it's happening. Most people move through their entire lives leaving small emotional residue on everyone they interact with and never once circle back to find out what that residue actually weighed. Because there's no delayed flood forcing the accounting. You just happen to get a version of the world honest enough to send you the bill. You find your old friend's number still saved, 12 years later than it should ever need to be. You don't know what you're going to say. You just know, now, in a way you didn't before, exactly what 4 seconds of a specific sentence can do to a person's insides. Because you carried the full weight of it yourself. 20 full minutes on a bathroom floor. No way to rationalize it into something smaller than it was. The call is awkward. Overdue calls always are. You don't fix 12 years in one conversation. But you say the actual thing. Not a version softened enough to protect your own comfort, the real one. And something on the other end of the line goes quiet, in a way that feels less like anger and more like being believed, finally, after a long time of not being. That night, you don't feel a returned wave of anything. No borrowed warmth, no delayed relief, just your own tiredness, ordinary and yours. The first entirely your own feeling you've had in weeks. Maybe that's the actual lesson hiding under all of this. Not that emotions get repaid on a ledger somewhere, but that every single one you hand someone else is real and full-sized the moment it leaves you, whether or not anything ever comes back to prove it. You just happen to get the receipt. You start noticing your voice differently after that. Not performing kindness for a reward that might not even be real. Just paying closer attention, in real time, to the exact size of what you're handing someone. Because now you know, in your own body, exactly how far it travels and how long it can wait before it's finally due. You still don't know if it'll happen again. You don't know if tonight, or next week, or a year from now, something you said in passing today will find its way back to your chest at 2 a.m., uninvited, insisting on being felt in full. You just know you'll be paying more attention when it does.